Welcome Around the Table with the Public Square team. We're continuing our conversation about socialism from last week called Who Owns This World? Check it out if you missed it. This week's discussion is titled Who Has the Power? I'm Alan C. Duncan with Dave Zanotti, Rob Walgate, Dr. Jeff Sanders, and Melanie Elsey. Let's get to it. Here's Dave.
There's an old statement that says, he or she who has the gold rules. Sometimes true, sometimes not. Is that the power that ultimately is going to bring in the new version of America, the Democratic Socialist version of America? That's where we're going to get to. We've just got done with a lengthy conversation about who owns this place. We've concluded that to follow the right model, the model that upon which America was designed, the Declaration was declared, the Constitution was assembled, is to follow the line of Judeo-Christian thought, in that God owns everything, and that ultimately we answer to him. That was holding really well till about the time of Woodrow Wilson. And ever since that time, that whole mindset has been in decline. Now, the idea of a socialist communist takeover of America, because global communism has always been global communism, Stalin and all of the people that succeeded him all wanted global communism. America was always the big enemy. They always knew that. But they got busy taking care of their own stuff. They never got to where they wanted to go. Plus, their problem is they got retarded by this thing called World War II, in which one group of socialists end up fighting another group of socialists. The National Socialists, the Nazis, were fighting against the Soviet socialists. And the truth of the matter is that it was much in Stalin's mind that once he got rid of Hitler, he wanted to take over all of Europe for communist socialism, for Soviet socialism. That was his goal. And Churchill was on to him. Roosevelt, not so much. Not so much.
Very true.
So this is where and so that war sort of stopped everything. Then we had this thing where everyone said, okay, so Uncle Joe's not such a good guy. We got to get him out of the family. So let him go handle the winters in Russia. We've got to take care of some other things. And in the process of exiting World War II, Harry Truman did the right thing and used the bomb and saved millions of lives. Cost hundreds of thousands, tragically, sadly,
sometimes
horribly.
You are not left with a good versus bad decision. Sometimes your decisions are bad versus even worse.
War is hell.
Yeah.
And an opponent that will not surrender, lest the death of every man is going to kill everyone in the end. And that is exactly the historical reality of what we face at the end of World War II. And I don't care whether a person claims to be conservative or liberal. I don't care if a person sits upon a moral perch and tries to judge in retrospect. If you can't get back to that history and get 50 years in front of it and understand behind it and understand what was happening and what Truman was facing, your opinion just doesn't hold weight. We go back and we revisit. Now, that decision did not make Uncle Joe's day. Stalin was pretty upset because he didn't have one. He didn't have a bomb. Didn't take him long to steal the stuff it took to get one. Then once he had the bomb, the world is in this situation. It's called the Cold War. We have one society that is built on the antithesis of what America stands for. America is the God-filled equation. Doesn't mean America's God-filled. It means that the equation is completed because God is on both sides. He's at the beginning and he's at the end. He's at the beginning of our founding. He's at the end of our judgment. Uncle Joe's philosophy, communism, Marxist, Leninist, socialism, there is no God. All that matters is the state. Who judges the state? Nobody, because there is no judge. That's the Cold War in an essence. That's why in 1959, the United States Congress altered the words of the Pledge of Allegiance to put the words "under God" into it. The height of the Cold War was so intense in the godless versus God-filled equation that we understood this was a spiritual war. that we're talking, these people who divorced themselves from the traditional line of Judeo-Christian thought, which was European and American, the Western mindset, they're nothing but trouble. And then they proved it with their gulags. They proved it with their regime. They proved it with their totalitarianism.
I was just going to say that in Congress, when they added the words "under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance, that was not something that they just pulled out of thin air. The phrase is used by Abraham Lincoln in the Gettysburg Address that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. And then you can go back to the Declaration.
Lincoln wasn't a socialist? This nation under God
shall have a new birth of freedom. Many of his speeches were loaded with biblical symbolism, the new birth, with malice toward none, with charity toward all. You can go to many of his speeches, but then go further back.
He loved the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Yes,
you know
he
that.
did. But
he said, play it again.
Yeah.
Play it again.
But go back to the Declaration. Go back to the founding documents, where they all talk about how we are under God, that there is an absolute source of truth and goodness and beauty in this world, and we can discover it, and we should live under it. We should submit our lives to that absolute standard.
Now, language in this period of time, is to say it was godless communism. That was frequent language. And so we would say it's godless communism against capitalism. Ooh, we should have thought wiser of that. That's shorthand because we had a lot of syllables going. It's not godless communism against capitalism, because godless capitalism is every bit as dangerous as godless communism, because it still just then comes down to power and money. The God-filled equation versus the godless equation.
And godless capitalism, if you're not loving your neighbor, creates some major issues.
Well, without a God, why would you love your neighbor?
Yeah, that
just to get something from him, right?
Just to get something and or exploit. The interesting thing, looking back at that 1959 vote, it doesn't seem like it was a contentious vote. It was a voice vote to put under God into the pledge without a lot of opposition.
How about that?
Setting
how
up
times
the
have changed.
But when we think about, socialism, communism, the fraction of folks that want to see that happen today, they don't point anywhere in history where it's been successful. They can't come to a spot and say, wait a minute, let's do it like so-and-so did it, because look at the way they thrived.
Well, the closest they can come to would be communist China today, which has did have until most recently, a thriving economy. But it's not because of a communist economic model. Back in the 1980s, Deng Xiaoping, the leader of China, they said communism is not working. Collectivism is not working. Let's have a capitalist model. And so they set it up all over China. They're called special economic zones. Vietnam did the exact same thing in the late 1980s. Why is Vietnam today the fourth largest economy in Southeast Asia? Because they ditched socialism.
And the Chinese said, I know this, the Westerners, they may have that God stuff, but they're really greedy, so let's give them access to our markets, and they'll give us all that stuff. And then once they come with all their companies and give us all the stuff, steal all their patents and basically take it back to ourselves and go, we don't have courts like you do.
They still have a totalitarian police state with a capitalist economy in many areas. So what do they have now? It's not communism.
It's communism with gumball machines.
They have fascism.
They have godless capitalism.
Well, but no. Well, yes, but the best way to explain what they have today is fascism. They still have total government control over the means of production. Yes, I'm going to be quiet for a second.
No, it's all good. I was just going to plus that by saying we've talked about this before. They told everybody for 50 years you can only have one kid. So talk about owning the people. They tried to control your relationships, not only your finances, everything.
Isn't that interesting?
And if you had more than one child, then they aborted that child.
And they said whether or not you were allowed to ride public transportation based on your social credit score.
Yes.
They had ultimate control over almost everything you did.
That's the model you want? That's the model you want here in the United States?
Oh, come on.
Well, people would say no. Most people
say no. Of course not. We just want equity. We just want equity and equality. We just want women to have control over their own bodies.
Who's going to give you?
Wait, we just want you to quit picking on trans people.
I don't pick on any trans people.
Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah.
You're gonna...
No, well, you brought up taking our companies and our factories over to China. They exploited our greed to then steal the technology, but you also then gutted communities in America, and those jobs are gone and they're not coming back. You took factory work and you offshored it to China, and so that's the combination of godless capitalism here. Like, it's okay if we just throw an entire community out of work.
Yeah, greed is really lousy.
Yeah, well, it reminds you the Chesterton quote: "The problem with capitalism isn't too many capitalists; it's too few."
Okay.
So
now
think about that for a second.
That's it. Okay, we've got another excellent Chesterton entrance here, as it should be. It's a great quote. I am going to get emails on the comment I made earlier back to you about love. Someone is going to accuse me of saying, "Are you saying that atheists are incapable of loving anyone except for self-service?" No. Not at all.
But they're not commanded to.
Because God exists.
Because, yes, and because God put in their heart the capacity to love, because we're made in his image. Everyone can love. Love is one of the greatest apologetic arguments for the existence of God, because we almost cannot survive without love. Now, I can't say we can, because we've dedicated ourselves to such distractions, delusions, and drugs that some people are trying to survive completely as islands unto themselves. But love is one of the evidences that God exists, because God is love. So no, in fact, just the opposite. We are capable because of his common grace to all of us. The bigger question is, if there's no God, why would you love? What in the Darwinian natural order of the survival of the fittest would command you to love? Because love costs you something. Love can even cost you your life.
Yeah, and I shouldn't have said they aren't commanded to love. They choose not to follow that command because they don't believe in the Almighty. You're still commanded to do it. He still has authority.
But see, this
even
is
if you
also
don't recognize
a critical question in regards to what kind of world are we going to live in. Did the Democrat Socialists have an answer for that?
Well, we'll let you think about that while we go to a short station break. Then we'll talk about our current political landscape when we return. Stay with us.
Spreading the light of liberty across the land. Now back to the public square.
We are back for more of the Public Square. Dave, I'll pass it over to you.
So let's try to line this up and line this out. Let's talk about this in the context of the current dynamic of American politics. We've got elections. They're coming every 2 years. And for the first time in anyone's recollection, we have candidates popping up that are winning primaries in the Democrat Party, running as Democrat Socialists, and we have incumbents who have either come out to acknowledge where they were or have converted to the Democrat Socialists of America party and agenda. And of course, Bernie Sanders was always there, but now he's got a whole number of recruits. Now, there's two theories about this. Oh, let them play. They'll never take over America. What can a handful of people do? You all are overreacting. This is the problem. In fact, we haven't taught the kids in school well enough. They'll figure out sooner enough or later enough. There's not a threat here. Maybe that's true.
Whistling past the grave.
And maybe we've just wasted 4 or 5 hours of your time in a series of broadcasts saying danger. What? Look, it's a Horseshack right there. He's got his hands. Rob's jumping right out of his chair.
Because of the fact, I would say, when you look at the population as a whole, when you look at academia, they would be the ones that would become more aligned with the DSA. And for that reason, we talk about educating the kids. That's a concern because of the institutions that those teachers are coming out of and what they are taught. And then they're just recycling those words back to the young people. And I think, there's a lot of folks that just send their kids off to be educated? And are we asking the questions of what they're learning in those classrooms in kindergarten, first, second, third grade?
We see ideas have consequences. So do elections, because elections are the expression of our ideas and of our conviction. And by elections, we hand people power, and they're there to represent us. Well, if we hand the Democrat Socialists of America power, then they're going to use it as they see fit. And if you vote for a DSA candidate, they're going to say you voted for our platform, so we're going to execute it. No difference if you vote for a Republican or independent.
Well, except they don't execute the platforms that they say they're going to, by and large. So that's an aside.
Interesting point. I think that the Republicans are probably almost as guilty.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, I think you said that right. I think you said that political parties, by the way, candidates tend to very seldom, if ever, execute on their promises.
They might throw you a bone every once in a
And
while.
plus, they also pathetically overpromise from top to bottom, because unless you have 60 votes in the Senate, and unless you have a significant majority in the House that is veto-proof, you are not in the majority. And so we have a brokered system of government, which brings us back to Melanie's basic contention. That is, this should be being done at the states. America was designed to work from the state level down, not up. And it certainly was never designed to run from Washington. But the Democratic Socialists are very interested in having everything run from Washington. Now, here's the secret sauce on all this. Let's go back to That Hideous Strength. The premise that C.S. Lewis saw in between 1943, when he wrote the preface, and 1946, when That Hideous Strength was published, he saw the change of Western culture by a thing called technocracy. And that people were willing to give their power, their rights, even their identity away to trade with a power they felt they could not overcome. And the power they felt they could not overcome was a technocracy. When government becomes ruled by technocrats, and people, to be able to survive, have to please the technocrats, then nobody has got any shooting going on here. What if that's the actual model? And all of the conversations that we're having about Stalin and Hitler and the 20th century are actually the conversations that the Democrat Socialists of America want us to have. What if there are more than two players in this game? What if there's the Democrat Socialists and the Democrat Party, who doesn't quite know what to do with them, but what if the people who really pay the bills for the Democrat Party and the Democrat Socialists, and who have the most money and the most power, what if they are very happy to let those people continue to go and grow and go and grow until they get enough power to gum up all the works, but never have enough power to fix anything? Then the technocrats step in and fix the chaos.
I mean, you see owners of these big tech companies cozying up to whoever is in power in Washington.
Oh, what? You assumed I was talking about the big tech companies?
I did assume that.
What an excellent discernment.
Probably because we've had other conversations.
Haven't we seen this to an extent at the state level? And we've seen citizens react with their feet. And what I mean by that is, look at the population increase in certain states around the country. So you've seen some states that have moved towards a model, not a full socialist communistic model, but a model to where they infringe on the rights of citizens. I mean, you've seen a mass exodus, have you not, from California, from New York? Mm-hmm. You look at how Tennessee's grown, Texas has grown, Florida's grown, and you look at taxes and other variables.
You left out Illinois also, people leaving that state.
Let me ask you this question. Why is it that the largest owners of money, the richest corporations in America, the biggest capitalists on the block, have nothing to say about the Democrat Socialists of America? Where is Mark Zuckerberg? Where is Jeff Bezos? Where is Bill Gates? Where is Larry Page, Sergey Brin? Where are these people? They showed up on the DS for the president's inauguration, President Trump's inauguration.
Wasn't that surprising?
And they were all there. They want their AI processes to go forward. They don't want China to beat us on AI. Does anyone know how much, when you take these companies, when you take Google and Amazon and YouTube and Facebook and whoever I'm leaving out, Alphabet, for whoever I'm leaving out of the big seven, when you take their actual cash on hand, there are months where they have far more money than the federal government has to pay the bills. Now, why are they not saying anything about the Democrat Socialists of America?
Probably because they could buy them.
Maybe they
Yeah, because they can't take everything that they have.
Or maybe because they're creating enough level of chaos that the other side can come back in to say we're here to stem that off.
Maybe the chaos is useful.
They're just biding their time.
You say, oh, well, come on. Well, wait a second. Right now, all of these people have one thing in common. They are making boatloads of money in the markets, speculating wholly on AI. And what is AI doing so far? So far, now, there are some, we're clear about this. AI is a technology. Mm-hmm. AI is not a person. AI is an it. It is software.
Claude's not real?
All right. I'm surprised you know that name.
I am part of the 21st century.
Okay.
I try to keep up.
Anybody
against your will.
Against my will, kicking and screaming.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So why are they quiet? Might it be that they consider the DSA a useful agent? Might it be that they have given up on the concept of the American Republic, and they would rather, as transhumanists, see this world radically altered by what they call AI? Is it possible that right now, since they're so busy scraping everything off the internet to create their large language models, that the very first thing they know they've got to overcome is the constitutional prohibition against thievery and the concept of copyright laws? And right now they are doing everything in their power to get around anything that's considered the protection of private property, in the realm of the created arts, the spoken word, the written word, all of that stuff, so they can build their system so big. They're breaking out from one of the very few places where the federal Constitution takes a direct, absolute creation of law on the people in regards to the protection of intellectual property and copyright.
That's complicated for AI. I mean, when you think about it,
they're stealing everything.
They're pulling in everything and not giving credit to anything.
Credit, let alone compensation.
Right.
Well, and it seems that at least now, and I can't judge their motives, but it seems that some of these companies might be cozying up to the government because they almost want to close the door behind them. We'll cozy up to the government, get the regulations that benefit our company. They don't want to have to compete with another upstart AI.
Get
LLM.
control of the natural resources that they need, and then tip Wall Street. By the way, all that money people are making, it's a tip money compared to what these guys have got in their portfolios.
They don't want to have to compete. They want to be maybe one or two AI companies in the country. They don't want to have to compete against a bunch of upstarts.
Now, let's take a minute and let's ask ourselves, is there any evidence of this? This is a very serious indictment. Oh my, they might sue us. Well, they've done that already, haven't they? Remember a thing that we've mentioned just couldn't stop? No one put it in a script. This is another completely unscripted conversation here. Remember that little 2-syllable word that starts with a C and ends with a D? It's called COVID. Anybody remember COVID? And what were the rules for big tech when chaos reigned supreme there?
They yielded to the government and what the government said, and they tried to censor everyone that had a contrarian viewpoint to what the state wanted.
You even had entire governments arresting people who would post something on social media because it was contrary to the official line.
I started it, Alan. We got to go to break. All right, stay with us. Would you? That was painful. Don't turn the channel just because it's hurting. There'll be an end to this.
Promise? All right, let's take that break. We'll be back soon. And if you can stand us, keep it right here.
We will be right back for more on the Public Square.
Let's reset the Public Square table today, talking about who has the power. I'm Alan C. Duncan once again with Dave Zanotti, Rob Walgate, Dr. Jeff Sanders, and Melanie Elsey. Dave, you really want us to keep reliving COVID? Okay, fine. I guess we got to talk about it.
Where was big tech in COVID? Now, you proposed that they were doing what the government was ordering them to do.
Well, we know now that there was collaboration.
Yeah,
we have the emails.
Yeah, we've had a look behind the curtain to see what the discussion was about, and I mean, we're talking about, and we have video proof. I mean, remember the mom in Ohio? I think it was at a middle school football game, sitting without a mask on, and she was arrested. And
Hazed and arrested.
You're like, what is happening here?
Mark Zuckerberg admitted it in front of Congress. He said, I was wrong and I did the wrong thing and I censored it. But
he did. But then looking back at that time too, remember, I mean, let's look at Gavin Newsom, right? He went out to a restaurant unmasked.
Nancy Pelosi the same.
I mean,
the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot,
she got her hair done. She had to have her hair done because J.B. Pritzker, his family.
Once the big tech companies decided that some piece of information was misinformation, then they mobilized against the people who are propagating that information. In other words, you got shut off, you were deplatformed, you were silenced, you were censored. I'm sorry. Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or of the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the First Amendment,
or of assembly,
or of assembly,
that was,
or of assembly.
No, that was one of my.
But it's okay if you're BLM people burning down a city.
That was one of my favorite tweets from, I believe it was the Raleigh Police Department, that said the assembly that was taking place outside was not on the approved list of the governor's orders. That was not an approved activity. And you're like, it's a constitutional right, but they were saying it's not on the approved list, and people were like, losing their mind over it, which they should have been.
So fear can eliminate constitutional practice. And what does fear come from? Fear comes from chaos. What did COVID create? COVID created chaos. Can you remember panic?
Mm-hmm.
Panic. Can you remember the pictures of major cities on television? Can you remember what it looked like to see no one moving in Midtown Manhattan in the middle of the day?
I lost a friend to suicide because they lost their business.
Yeah, think of all the businesses that were confiscated, that were shut down and confiscated illegally by governors all across the United States, and nobody.
And they picked winners and losers. They let some of those businesses proceed, and others did not.
The government was defining who was essential and who was non-essential.
Mm-hmm. What about private property? What about your right to private property?
You lost all. I mean, we didn't in essence lose those rights, but they tried to take them away from you in the short term, and their attitude was, we're going to take them away.
So if they shut down your business and put a chain over the door and you can't go in, you can't operate, you can't make it, you have to still pay the bills, didn't they just seize your property?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, 100%. And that's why I think it goes even beyond fear. I think fear in the beginning created the chaos and created lack of movement because people didn't know what was going on. But very shortly after that, that's when you had people bringing up, hey, wait a second, this doesn't make sense.
Well, it was about 60 days after the 15 days to flatten the curve that we start figuring it out.
Yes. At every point, they were proven demonstrably to be wrong. we're looking at the models. You were seeing, oh, actually the masking doesn't seem like it works. Oh, actually the kids seem like they get COVID and bounce back really quick. At every point they were shown to be wrong, but that was still not enough for them to relinquish the control that they were seizing.
And in one state, they were even cooking the books on the data that they were collecting.
Yes, admitting so that in and of itself is
in
an
one
admission.
state they were making it up, and we've got the proof.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so they knew
Yeah.
they were wrong, but they were still exercising control.
And they knew they were wrong because now that when they've released all the emails and all the studies from behind the scenes, we can see what they knew about what it was going to do to kids.
And yet they still wouldn't let you question them on YouTube.
No, and think about, here's the other thing, and I don't want to, well, you think about right now, people say we're in a housing crisis. Well, if all the people passed away from COVID that passed away, I think more people passed away with COVID, not from COVID, when you look at some death certificates, but we wouldn't have a housing shortage. It was people that had comorbidities, unfortunately. That's who it ravaged. And it's sad and it's unfortunate, but it was the government lying to us for a long period of time.
So I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't do. All right. And maybe we may have to cut this. I don't know. In one state, we had some people on the inside. We have friends all over. We don't have millions of friends. We got a few friends, a few places. And one of these friends was a very large, substantive governmental player, lobbyist, consultant, done a lot of things in state government. And he was working directly for the Speaker of the House during COVID. And I called this person and I said, this doesn't add up. It's not true. We've got to have redress. Will the legislature help us create redress against the governor's excessive and the Department of Health's excessive behavior? And this friend said, no. Speaker could care less. How can the Speaker care less? Because they've got the facts and you don't. When you have the facts, call me back. Click.
Wow.
So we gathered the facts. I called him back. He said, interesting, but they're winning every day. They have news conferences at 2:00 every day. The Speaker's not about to take on this machine, this juggernaut, and overturn the governor of the Department of Health. All right. You got the facts, but you don't have the numbers. Call me back. Click. Third call. We got the numbers. Yeah, here they are. Huh. I'll call you back. It took the legislature in that state 3 attempts to finally overcome their own seated governor to restore the rights of the people from the insanity of a governor picking winners and losers, spending taxpayer dollars to literally go underground and examine the excrement coming out of the plumbing to try to track COVID in neighborhoods so he could quarantine and shut down specific neighborhoods and lock people, literally chain their streets so they could not leave because this governor believed that the people were the virus.
And folks, that was not some leftist, progressive, Democrat Socialist of America governor.
Yeah, these were all Republicans.
Well,
Conservative, pro-life, Republican governor. That's who
I
it
can
was.
remember being in a state, during that time and driving, was invited to play golf where you were going to have to walk. You couldn't ride in carts with someone, but there was a course that was going to be open. And I remember driving there. The highways were empty, but about every other turnaround in the middle of the interstate was law enforcement. Huh. And it was just sending it. I've never been nervous driving on the roads of the United States.
The creepiest
it was so eerie to me.
in the world.
I'm like, if they pull me over, like
Papers, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was,
they were doing that in New York State. They were
Why are
turning
you on the
people
road?
around saying, you can't leave the state.
And it's always for your own good. Again, I know we mentioned it before,
We're
but it's
protecting you.
For the
always
greater good.
for the greater
We
good.
had instances.
As a reminder, in most states, if not all, most states, this phenomenon was happening through executive orders out of the executive branch. And in our structure of government, the legislatures are not constitutionally allowed to hand off their power to the executive branch.
We literally forfeited our form of government to a dictatorship sponsored through the Department of Health.
It took a lot of work to come up with the language to put in statute to rein back in the legislature handing over their own authority.
Okay, Melanie, I hate to interrupt, but we do have to pause right here. But we'll be back for more of The Public Square in a moment. Stay tuned.
We will be right back for more on The Public Square.
You are back with us on The Public Square. We're talking about who has the power. And Rob, you want to start this segment off with memes?
You know, there were so many memes passed around during COVID, but one that always stuck with me was a photo of the founders. They're working on the Constitution or the Declaration. But the headline says, none of this matters if there's a pandemic. And that's in essence what was done by politicians on both sides of the aisle. They ripped it up.
Do you see the formula? If chaos can be created and sustained, then people will voluntarily surrender their rights to people in power, even if those people in power are absolutely violating the Constitution.
A virus that only kills 1% of the population, and then only with people who have comorbidities. So Alice and I were standing in a store.
But that information was censored by the big tech companies, criticized. Okay.
So let me tell you a quick story that
I guess I still have some scars over this.
Yeah, I do too. So Alice and I were standing in a store. It was a delicatessen, and everybody in the store, except for some of the people behind the counter, everybody was wearing a mask. And Alice and I were the youngest customers in that store. There were several people far older, and there was a lady, very elderly, and she had a mask on. And her husband had a walker, and he had a mask on. And she decided to speak very loudly in front of everybody. I don't know why everybody isn't wearing a mask. It's the law, you know. And she said that in front of Alice and me. And we immediately turned around, and I said, "Oh, no, it is not the law." And I said it louder than she did in front of everybody to get everybody's attention. And she backed up, which I'm a peaceful and harmless person, like a butterfly. And I said, "No, it is not the law. This is a decree from the governor." I said, "Who makes law, ma'am?" She didn't say anything. I said, "Who makes law?" I said, "The legislature makes law." And did the legislature in our state tell us to wear masks? No, it did not. So this is a decree. It is illegal, and you are not bound to wear the stupid mask. And what did my wife say? She said, "We got rid of kings a long time ago, ma'am." Nobody said another word.
God bless Alice. Okay.
Amen.
So let's replay the scenario now. You got away with that, barely. If you had said that online, you would have been deplatformed.
If I had been in Australia or the UK, I would have been arrested.
You would have been arrested. If you had opened a church door and held services in Canada or Australia, and in some places in the United States of America, you would be shut down. And there were people taken to jail.
And the
doors were changed. We were on the verge of all of those things. Not by legislative action, not by constitutional action. The Constitution disappeared because of the chaos. Now, let's put I don't know, 20 or 30 members of the DSA in the United States House of Representatives. And let's say we've got a challenge when it comes to appropriations and passing a budget, and they're not getting what they want. And so we can't get a budget passed, and they close down the government. Do you honestly think they care? That's what they've wanted to do all along, is close down our form of government. So they create the chaos. How are we going to fix it? You got to have a vote. What do we do? Because they want to close it down. They don't care. They're there to create chaos. What if there is another health situation? I don't even want to use the word, that P word. I don't want to use that word. What if there's another situation like that? So let's go back to big tech. We've seen how they performed. That was before AI was on every other page.
Why wouldn't they just cause the P word themselves? Why wouldn't they just cause it? I mean, many people believe they caused this one, whether unintentionally or not. They could just do it.
There are people who have got very serious claims about the fact that the health world had a decision to make about mRNA technology. And based on the conversation that happened in the Milken Institute several months before the pandemic broke out, where they actually said out loud, what if, and then described a situation where a novel flu-like virus were to emerge from, say, China. And I'm not going to say what they said because I don't want to get sued by them. Let's just say when you listen to it yourself, you realize they were just spitballing. But boy, did they get it right.
Well, and you look at the media headlines from that time, and the media was bashing folks for asking questions when the authorities knew the answers to those questions and the people that were asking questions were accurate, but they still let the media continually pile on.
Wait, who owns the media? Let's see, the Washington Post is owned by Amazon, which is owned by Bezos. Axios is owned by Laura Powell Jobs. Golly, now that I start to think about it, ABC, A&B, so that's owned by Disney and the C-suite folks up there who shut down at the bidding of Demings, the county mayor there in Florida, in Orlando. Golly, maybe the media, I don't know, are they in on it too? Oh, look, okay, we just lost. Well, we didn't have millions of listeners, so we probably just lost like a bunch.
No, I think we gained a bunch.
Okay.
I mean, I think people are onto this. I mean,
if this is a conspiracy, somebody show me where a single fact is not honest. We're talking about stuff we all experienced.
But you were called a conspiracy theorist before all the data came out. And so that's why you have to just be immune to someone calling you a conspiracy theorist. If you're actually doing real research and you're at primary source documentation and you're judging things accurately, they're just going to call you a conspiracy theorist until you're right, until you're proven right.
We watched civil government cease to exist in a constitutional formula and function on fear, function on profiteering, function on anything but the rule of law. And that was because we had what was perceived a pandemic, which is something we've never seen before. So what's next? All right, so the contention that we... Oh, go ahead. You're out, Melanie, that's it? You're done?
No, I said you asked what's next.
Okay, and you said?
And I think that what's next is going to be an election pandemic where the whole electoral process gets turned on its ear through quote-unquote irregularities, as we had irregularities in our healthcare system. So if they're going to be able to go in and create chaos or seize anything state to state to state, we have a decentralized system in our electoral system. So I think the next pandemic is going to be an electronic one.
Okay, no, wait, okay, whoa. All right. So let's just say, let's play this out. Let's war game this out, if you will. Oh, boy, war. Now let's go ahead and play this one out. Let's board game this one out. So we've got election irregularities, and now all of a sudden the DSA and others have decided to say that, you know, you all are right. This is so bad we can't fix it. We just can't fix it. So they will, but how?
Great question, Dave. Something to consider while we're on our break. Some stations have to leave us now, and if yours does, you can hear the conclusion at thepublicsquare.com or on Spotify or YouTube. Search for The Public Square and look for The Lamppost. For everyone else, we'll be right back.
We will be right back for more on The Public Square.
Our final few minutes together today on The Public Square. Dave, you wanted to talk about someone that we hope will become a new friend of The Public Square.
Just so you'll know, there is more coming here. We've talked about this entire process and what big tech's role was, and we have a friend who was right in the middle of that. Dr. Aaron Kheriaty, who was the head of the Medical Ethics Division of University of California at Irvine, who was fired because he spoke out on COVID. He was working in the Great Barrington Declaration with Jay Bhattacharya and others. And Aaron was a serious player in that. And
he tried to be ethical in the medical ethics community, and he
got
was
fired.
expelled. Okay,
yeah, he got fired. Yeah,
just making
because
sure I'm tracking.
He said, "I'm sorry. The last time I checked, medical ethics says first for doctors do no harm. We're doing a lot of harm, and somebody's got to say something." And he got canned.
Sounds right.
Now he didn't just sue to get his job back because he hasn't gotten his job back. He didn't sue to get a financial claim. He sued because of the truth. And he was joined by a number of other people, and that suit has recently made its way to the Supreme Court, and in that process finally reached a settlement.
Good. Aaron
Kheriaty has a wonderful speech about all the things we've been talking about on YouTube. Kheriaty, Aaron, Aaron Kheriaty. It's from Hillsdale College. It's on Hillsdale's site. Look for Dr. Aaron Kheriaty. Go to Hillsdale. It's good. It's really a good speech, and he gets back into that hideous strength. So our goal is to feature some of that speech coming up, and Dr. Kheriaty has agreed to join us here on the Public Square to talk about their suit where they took on big tech, who made them shut up illegally against their constitutional rights, because they were too chaotic. They were agents of chaos, and they believed that they had the right of conscience and free speech, and big tech wanted them silenced, and so did the government, and they came after them. And these guys have fought the fight at tremendous personal price. We're going to get Dr. Kheriaty to join us.
Well, when you look at what else the government did, I mean, they were, think about it, looking for papers. If you didn't take the shot, right? Has there ever been a time before where people were treated as second-class citizens based on whether or not they put something into their body that the government told them they must?
Show me your papers or you may not see your dying mother.
Well, and some people weren't even allowed to see their dying mother, unfortunately, to begin with. But yeah, show me your papers or you're not eating at our restaurant. Show me your papers or you're not to leave your hotel room.
Show me your papers or you're not getting your medical degree that you have paid for and earned.
You know, in some places it was show me your papers or you're not getting your surgery because we will not permit you to get into this hospital.
You heartless people don't care. People are dying. There's just one problem. We're not saying this because we don't want our rights abused. We're saying it because we've done the research and checked your numbers and you're full of it. Children, I listened to the CDC board that was charged with the childhood treatment of this. There's a committee that's involved on whether they were going to approve COVID to be for children for vaccinations or not. And it was an open call. The whole nation could have listened. And I listened to the whole thing. I could not believe it. They went on for hours, and here was their bottom line conclusion. I'm telling you, this is what they said. They said, well, the facts aren't changed. It doesn't look like this is really much of a threat to children. But out of an abundance of caution, we're going to recommend that the vaccine be given to children.
Of course.
In one state, when we we were looking at the dashboard with all of the data points, and they defined a child up through age 19. The only documented cases of COVID were at age 19. So there literally were 0 cases in that state.
But then you had people who maybe didn't do their homework, who just thought, oh, the CDC told me I need to get my kid vaccinated. And they do it. And so some of this stuff, it's not even forced upon you. It's just told to you from some position of power
and
that you're
somebody
supposed to respect.
Somebody in this room was told by their pediatrician, don't bring your children back here. You're no longer our patients because you're not following our regiment the way we want it done.
Yeah, our pediatrician told us, we're no longer patients there because we didn't follow every single recommendation. And all we did was ask questions like,
so
hey,
you just got fired by your doctor.
First, do no harm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a flip side example. My doctor, when I walked in, I had a mask on. The nurse did not. She said, you can keep that on if you want, but none of us are wearing masks.
Well, and I know a lot
No,
of
you can't have her doctor.
a lot of people miss out on a lot of important things because of COVID and the things that happened. But RJ, it was his year for baseball. The team was traveling to Cooperstown, New York, and they sent over the form to sign to go to Cooperstown. And the requirements that the state of New York was making for these kids, I wasn't permitted in the state because I wasn't vaccinated. I'm like, I can't send my kid because if they put him in a hospital, I'm never going to see him again. And that was the reality. That was happening. So, needless to say, he didn't go to Cooperstown.
So Melanie came up with the question in the electoral model, what if? So let's just say we get to a place where the socialists have decided that there's just too much money in politics, which they say, by the way, was their contention, even though the Supreme Court says money in politics is free speech. And by the way, we preceded the Democratic Socialists of America in the campaign finance reform debate by, 1992 to today is a lot of time. We were there a long time before them. Okay, we helped write term limits laws. We helped work on campaign finance reform. We've been down this road, and you know what the problem is? Campaign finance laws are always used by the people with the most power to take away power from people they're threatened by. The Supreme Court finally got it right and said political speech is free speech, and if you're spending money to get speech, and the subject is politics, that's still free speech. That ruling is right, but the DSA says too much money in politics. We got to get rid of those rules and stop it. Okay, that's what they want to do. Let's say we have the scenario where, because of the motor voter laws, where people go into the DMV and who have legitimate need for licenses but are not United States citizens, the DSA wants voting rights for all permanent residents, not citizens. All permanent residents, not citizens. Right now, if you go in as a permanent resident, you have a driver's license, they'll ask you, do you want to register to vote? Because the law requires, federal law requires, they ask that question. And since you're not allowed to breach of privacy on anything else about these people, you can't say to them, are you a citizen? Are you not a citizen? You can only say, would you like to register to vote? And they say, sure, I'd love to register to vote.
Because they don't know the laws of the land because they're not from here.
Or they do, and they want to do it anyway.
Or because they want to be registered just in case the laws get changed. Because some cities are promising they're going to change them. So they say yes. They have the right to answer the question. They did not lie when they said yes. Now they're on the files. Now, an election comes down. No, so, well, there's only, come on, there's only, how many of them? Well, New Jersey said there's just a few thousand. All of a sudden, there's tens of thousands or more. Okay? All right. Yeah, because they can say yes.
Yeah.
Now, let's say we've got a voting scandal, and it's proven we got a scandal, so big tech shows up. The guys with all the dough and says, here's the answer. We're going to online voting because we can fix it. We'll fix the problem for you. We're going to have AI voting. It won't be governed by the local communities. It won't be governed by the states. It won't be monitored by the people in your neighborhood and precinct. It will just be whatever Claude and Alexa and Siri and whoever else all that other stuff is all about. It'll just be what big tech says it is.
That's what they do in the book and the film The Circle that we've talked
Circle,
about
yeah.
a bunch of times. They do that. And that was years ago that came out.
There's more on this conversation. We're going to get Dr. Carriotti to talk to us, I believe, and that'll provide some interesting input. I'm just telling you that the people that have all the money are trying to do all they can to get the power to join with it. And they have a play in this. And the question is, why are they not opposed to the Democrat Socialists of America?
One final question to leave you with today on The Public Square. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, team. And thank you for listening to today's edition of The Public Square. To listen again or share with a friend, visit us wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube or at thepublicsquare.com. We'll see you next time.
The Public Square is a broadcast service of the American Policy Roundtable.